made its foray into India back in 1994, and since then it's been at the forefront of luxury car market in India. In fact, it's been the highest luxury car retailer for 8 years on a trot and also has been a pioneer when it comes to research and development. This German global MNC treats India not only as the fastest growing market but also an important part of the global supply chain. But can Indian demand really be resilient in the wake of the global dynamics, and could India really become an export hub? Let's decode all of that with Mr. Santosh Iyer, the MD and CEO at MercedesBenz India. Santosh, hi, thank you so much for making time and speaking with us.
Thanks Anisha for joining us in our lovely plant in Pune.
Happy to be here, and it's been just a few weeks that you've been at the helm as the first Indian head of Mercedes-Benz India. Yeah. How's been the ride so far?
Well, it's precisely 6 weeks. I had my top boss coming, Ola in India, also visiting the market. I was in Stuttgart also. But the good part is this team is known to me. I have been with this company for close to 14 years. So the entire team, the organization is known. So it feels nice to take the hot seat as such. But on the other side, we have a fantastic team here. So I won't say much of operational tasks on my desk as of now.
That's good to know. But let's exactly take that hot seat and discuss this forward in this smooth luxury ride of yours.
Thank you.
So, Santosh, let me start with the demand environment, right? After that forced saving of year 2020, we saw the pent-up demand as well as the revenge buying in 2021 and 2022. What do you think is going to be 2023 like? Because is it the year where people will focus more on SIPs and savings versus EMI?
Yeah, I think post-COVID we definitely saw a bit of, we call it revenge buying kind of a phenomenon. A lot of pent-up demand was also there because for the last 2 years the overall market was down. And to add to it, we also launched a couple of new products. So we definitely have seen a very big surge in 22. 23, when I look at January, the order intake has been good. So I think the demand momentum still continues. What we have been trying to do is to increase production because, in post-COVID, consumers were ready to wait for 12 months, 18 months for their car. But now in this new world, they want cars at least in 3 to 6 months time, and that's something quite critical. So our entire focus is how do we increase production, how do we now reduce this waiting period. And a higher waiting period also means lower order intake because as I said, they need cars for some wedding in the family or some birthdays, and if we are unable to provide, then they start feeling, looking out for options or they postpone their purchases. So the entire game for us is now how do we ramp up our production or increase availability and continue to have a good order bank. Coming to savings, I think these are cultural topics. They won't change COVID, post-COVID as fast as what we would wish to. Frankly, I was referring to the top, interesting statistics. Only 4% of US $1 million households own a luxury car in India.
Oh.
This is 60% in Europe or in China, for example. So my reference point was to the $1 million households who still don't invest on a luxury car, but they would like to invest in stock market, nothing wrong. But at some point you reward yourself, you consume for yourself, and that was the point which of course got out of proportion, but yeah.
No, but this is something that even my friends at Amphi would want to know. What is Santosh's own savings mantra? What part of your wealth goes into, let's say, SIPs and savings, and what do you spend on discretionary and EMIs?
No, so for me, frankly, I also believe in savings as any other Indian would do that prudently. But there is a bit of risk appetite also. Yeah. At any point of time, I would also like to spend a bit on myself. Also, not keep too much for the kids. My belief is, and my wife also, is if the kids are capable enough, they will grow up, earn. But what we need to provide for is good education so that definitely they grow up and they can do it. But at some point, we are quite clear that we need to see world, we need to travel, we need to spend on ourselves. And that's a balance. And I think each family has their own compass, exactly where and how one should adjust and plan accordingly. But it's not that I just don't save and I only spend also. That's not the other extreme for sure.
No, and this, I didn't mean to put you on a spot there, but this ties in well with the other thing that we're talking about, the under-penetration of luxury cars in India. Now with the consumer psyche changing, consumer behavior changing, and people spending a lot more freely on discretionary spends and let's say buying a car versus a house, do you see the under-penetration changing in a big way in a short amount of time?
See, the big wave will be too ambitious. I think it takes time. The societal changes are happening, from a demographic perspective. We have more younger customers coming in. So, our average S-class age is now around 38 years. A C-class is 35. And these are young customers who have the similar mindset to enjoy life, not irresponsibly again, but to be enjoying it responsibly. Then the second demographics we see is change in female and women buyers.
Yeah.
From 7-8% today, 15% of our sales are women buyers. In fact, if I look at GLA, 25% of our GLA sales are women buyers.
Wow,
That's a very
number.
high number which we could not have imagined. And so these demographics, and last salaried class, earlier it used to be entrepreneurs or builders and these guys buying cars. Now today I have at least 8 to 12% now of salaried individuals buying cars, which means corporate India results are great. There are a lot of ESOPs maybe, and they are able to afford, and they are spending also.
Yes.
Of course, they are also saving. Like you and me as such, but they are also indulging and spending as such. So this change would take some time, and in the next 4 to 5 years horizon, hopefully this should accelerate with the demographics, changing demographics, I would say.
Oh, well, yes, and as you pointed out, it's no longer a sin good, and it's not considered, something wrong or flashy if you're buying a car for yourself, right? And that's what is panning out in the demand as well. So since you're so confident about demand, and there might be situations and, issues with respect to supply chain, but since you're so confident about demand, and you did what, just around 16,000 units in 2022?
Yes.
Should we expect what, 18 to 20,000 in 2023?
I think there are one is, of course, demand side we still don't see a headwind, but on the supply chain side still things have not fully sorted out, so we are still not able to put a number. Can we produce these cars and also sell them? But on the other side, certain other parameters are now emerging. For example, the exchange rate. The euro. If you've seen the last 8 weeks, euro used to be at 82. Now it's at 86. This puts more pressure on pricing. Interest rates going up by another 0.5 to 0.7 percentage points. So, of course, with this also increases the monthly outflow, etc. For even many, 80% of luxury cars are still bought on finance.
Yeah,
it's not cash.
Right.
So, and those guys, definitely there would be some amount of sensitivity. So these two factors have a tendency, price increase followed by high cost, can have a tendency to again slow down demand. So we need to really wait for the year. But our outlook is still double-digit growth. We still want to continue on this growth journey. We have been here for many years now. And as I said, the initial signs in January looks promising.
So, okay, not maybe a 40% growth, but a bit slower than that, is what you are hinting at?
The thing is, we are firstly, we manufacture, but our lead time for getting parts and components is 6 months. So that's always the question. Lot of our dealers said, Santosh, we could have sold more in 2022. We have 6,000, 7,000 pending orders. Right. I said, if I would have come to you in 2021, in the peak of COVID, 6 to 8 months, May 21, and asked, would you do 16,000 cars? Everybody would have said nuts. India is going through these issues. We have COVID happening. How can we think of luxury car sales? But it happened, and we managed 16,000, and thanks to our logistics production colleagues. So we need to be cautious, cautiously optimist, which is, and then plan. So double digit is a given, but we won't go too aggressive to plan very high, and then we see a different pattern emerging. Also, the global geopolitics, you just can't predict what's happening in Europe, with also in different parts of the world with currency rates, etc. So we will still continue to be on this humble double-digit growth forecast.
Well, it's not humble at all the way things are going. I think double-digit is something that everyone would be quite excited by. But which segment do you see the maximum traction is? Is it like the entry-level cars, or is it the high-end S-Class and Maybach, etc., which are seeing the maximum amount of traction?
No, that's quite interesting. Pre-COVID, our entry-level cars used to be around, say, 30% and then the top-end segment used to be around 12%. Exactly post-COVID, if you see last year data, 22% are coming from the top end. And when I say top-end vehicles, these are cars more than ₹1 crore. The S-Class, the GLS, the Maybachs, AMGs. And these cars today, and that's substantial, 22% coming from plus 1 crore out of a volume of 16,000 cars that we are selling. Also the growth, that segment has grown by 69%. And that also shows a lot of affinity. So the good part is Indians are not buying cheap luxury cars. They are buying good cars, well equipped, well specced at the top end. What we have also done consciously is in the so-called entry luxury, which is in the region of 50 lakhs, because even an A-class today costs close to 50 lakhs and a GLA around 55. I am saying the on-road prices. These cars also we have specced up. So we have not gone with a strategy where we come up with entry-level versions where it doesn't have basic features and we reduce the price. We said that if a consumer is upgrading to luxury, he should get all the basic features, not basic but also all the equipment that's coming in the car, and that should help us. So our strategy is different. No, I would say a price-led strategy. It's more equipment, brand, and of course a good product at the right price points.
Well, yes, absolutely. And you know, right now we are at a phase in this entire automobile journey that we are seeing two major transitions happening. One is the energy transition with the entire shift to EV, and this second is the entire interest towards SUV. Let's take it one by one. With respect to EV specifically, where is Mercedes-Benz India in that journey, and how do you look at tapping this opportunity?
See, for us, again, I go back to 2 years back. We launched the first car, the EQC in India. That time I used to get questions, is India ready for EV? Is Mercedes-Benz launching this car? We said we also don't know, but we are pretty confident that if there is a right product, we can definitely make inroads. And then the EQC happened. But unfortunately, there was COVID period at that point of time. And with COVID happening, by the time the demand came, we didn't have the cars. When the cars came, there was lockdowns. So that was not calibrated. But one thing became clear, that the customers are ready if there is a right product. So what we did is, way back in 2021, we decided we will localize the first EV in India. And that also, then the next question was which car? And again, no compromise. We said we start from the top end, and that's the reason this car, the EQS, which I'm driving now, is fully localized in India in our plant in Chakan, Pune. We did this big step to invest in Pune in this facility, and we are proud that we are the first locally produced electric vehicle in the luxury segment in India. So it has played off well. We have more than 500 bookings. We have delivered more than 250 cars now. We are still on this process. It's now 3 to 4 months of waiting period for this car. So quite well received. And then we followed it up with another experiment. We said, let's launch a 7-seater mid-size SUV. But both in gasoline, diesel, and in EV. And then we see how does this work between both these car lines. So there, our expectation, and my team said we will be 50-50, 50% on combustion, 50% on EVs. You will be shocked, we are at 70% EVs. Even on a 7-seater mid-size SUV. So clearly, there is absolutely a clear preference for EVs in India. If you have the right product strategy, right pricing, consumers are there.
Oh, well, yes, and I think that's what I see in everyday life as well. You have more and more inquiries coming in for EV. But the second thing, the trend that is there at the moment is clearly SUVs, right? A large part of the sales in the last year actually came in from the SUV segment. What are the new product launches that Mercedes has in that category, and what's your own expectation of how that particular product is likely to pan out?
See, for us, the product portfolio, we are quite healthy. We have around sedans and SUV, we used to have a share of 50-50. But last year, our SUV share went up to 53%. Two reasons. One, of course, consumer preferences are changing. They want a better body style and a bigger body shape as such. On the other side, our C-Class, which was one of the largest selling sedans we have apart from the E-Class, that was introduced only in May of last year. So for the first 4 months, we didn't have a sedan. So therefore, the percentiles may be misleading. Coming to SUVs, we have the largest portfolio in the segment, from the GLA to the G-Wagon as such. We continue to bet on that. In fact, the 7-seater also we launched was on a classic SUV design. And we will. The good part is you have a portfolio. Even in the sedans, we have a long wheelbase E-Class. So and a customer has a choice to make. But as I said, when I look at a GLA, 25% of female buyers prefer an SUV, prefer a car in that body shape. So this is again differs from region to region. We have more sedans in Bombay, for example, compared to Delhi, where you have more SUV affinity.
Time now for a pit stop in our conversation, but don't go anywhere. Lots lined up in the next lap. Santosh Iyer of Mercedes-Benz. Santosh, now we are in the Chakan facility, the state-of-the-art facility, over 100 acres. And the one thing that you were pointing out was that you're looking at ramping up production. Is it fair to say that the entire semiconductor issue is behind us now?
I would say semiconductor to a large extent is behind us, but still the component level supply chain is still a big issue because we have this crisis in Europe. Many of our tier 2, tier 3 suppliers, they are still struggling to get components. There is energy crisis there, and therefore there are delays for parts.
Okay.
Once we even source the part, there are delays in shipments, and there is a huge logistic issue because ships are not available, containers are delayed, prices have gone up also in the freight industry. So we are still grappling. It's much better than last year, but still a long way to go. So till end of this year, we still feel these issues will continue.
So what's the waiting period right now? What do you plan to bring it down to, and what's the order bank looking like?
See, the order bank is still upwards of 5,000 cars we have right now, and we are still ramping up production. So if I look at a GLA, the waiting period is 3 to 4 months. An S-Class Maybach is 7 to 8 months time. And then we have those top-end vehicles. The G-Wagon used to be a waiting period of 18 to 24 months. And a GLS Maybach again 12 to 18 months. What we have done is, we have discussed with headquarters, we have tried to get additional cars for India. And with this, the G-Wagon waiting time will be 9 to 10 months odd. Coming to cars produced in India, the C-Class should be available now in 2 months and the E-Class in 2 to 3 months. So we have really tried to cut down on waiting period and trying to push production as much as possible.
Okay, that point is taken, but let's talk about the policy in India, right? There is this entire push towards Atmanirbhar India, Make in India, etc. What's Mercedes-Benz India doing to kind of propel that?
See, for us, we have been always invested in India. We came to India 28 years back with this plant. This Chakan plant is made in 2009. We have continuously invested on people, on processes. We also localized the EV here. So that continues. This plant is set up for 40,000 cars. So we are fully prepared for any growth that comes in the market. On the other side, we also have a huge R&D base in Bangalore. We have 6,000 engineers working, and we are proud to say that every Mercedes in the world has an India in it, because there is some engineer working in Bangalore who has played a part in every car.
That's very interesting to know. But since we're talking about policy action, there was this announcement came in budget as well, wherein they've hiked the basic custom duties on a completely built units and semi-knockdown units as well, right? Does that pinch the pockets of people by a lot? Would it impact demand, you believe? And going forward as well, are there more price hikes expected?
See, for Mercedes-Benz India, we are rather insulated. 95% of the portfolio we make here in Pune, and it's not affected. So it's the 5% of the portfolio, specifically if I look at S-Class Maybach, where the impact is close to 2 lakhs, and the EQB and the GLB, where the impact will be close to 1.5 lakhs. But otherwise, 95% of the portfolio, since we make here locally produced in this plant, we are not affected.
Okay, that's good to know. So 95% of the portfolio is quite insulated. But also wanted to get a perspective on your retail strategy, because you have started this entire direct to customer as well as created this C2C marketplace of sorts as well. What are you doing to create this seamless retail experience?
See, one of the things that we saw that in India, for people, consumers to experience luxury, you need our retailers to also go that extra mile. But the traditional automotive retailing was all based on discounts, push, non-transparency, and handling charges, many other things with the overall system. So we took over this entire model. Now what we have done is we directly sell to customer. Our dealers have become agents, so their entire focus is on customer experience. What can they do and how do they compete with each other for the customer in terms of experience. So this radically changes the overall customer experience in this segment. The second thing is omni-channel retail. The traditional model of physical retail will continue, but what we have done is we also have a very good online store where the price is transparent, stock visibility is transparent. So whatever I said, my car is having a waiting period of 3 months, 4 months, all is available online. So a customer can go check, decide his car and allocate to himself along with the price. And this is all possible because we shifted to this model. So we are fully committed, and we are the first and the only ones to do the entire omni-channel retail experience with a new model which we call it as retail of the future.
Okay, so it's been what, almost 30 years for Mercedes-Benz in India since 1994, and it's been a great journey so far with respect to the ramp-ups that we have seen. How do you see the next 10 years panning out, and especially in wake of what your global CEO said, that India is not only the fastest growing market, but is also an important part of the supply chain?
See, I keep telling my team that the next 10 years will be much more exciting than what the 30 years happened for a couple of reasons. One, the industry is going through transformation. We are electrifying the portfolio. 25% of our sales we see in the next 4 to 5 years have to be electric. This won't come by default. We have to set up charging infrastructure, we have to educate the customers, we have to ensure we are able to produce these cars in India. So there is a lot of work to be done. On the other side, India has a role to play in the global scheme of things. You know, as I said, in Bangalore, we have our own sister company, which is called MBRDI, wherein we have 6,000 people working on the future technologies, new operating systems for cars, a lot of digitalization happening there. So when you combine the global contribution from Bangalore, what we do for the Indian market in Pune, I think Mercedes-Benz definitely is poised for the next 10 years, set up very differently for the next 10 years for a, I would say for a very aggressive growth strategy, but it is just not limited to number of cars. It's more limited to what can we contribute by sourcing components from India for the world also.
That will be interesting, but let me shift the focus a tad bit and talk about you. What else do you like to do when you're not working and in between all of these cars?
Well, I like to travel a lot, which I anyways do as part
because
of my
work?
job and work. I have 3 kids, twin boys and a daughter, so I like to now spend my weekends at home with them, going outside. But otherwise, you know, for many years, my favorite pastime is just spend time in a mall, shopping area. I watch consumers shopping. I love to see that, what they do. Also the retailer selling. Actually, that gives me a lot of insight. So that's my favorite pastime, you can say.
So sales and marketing is properly in your blood, in your DNA, right? Once a marketing guy, always a marketing guy.
I love it. It's not as a job, but I just love to, you know, constantly learn and update myself from the consumer behavior. Of course, of late, there's a lot of data involved in decision making, but I still feel a marketeer, the gut has a role to play than the data. So they both need to be balanced.
Okay, and you keep honing that skill as well, but which is your favorite car? Mercedes, non-Mercedes?
Well, with Mercedes-Benz, S-Class still remains the top-notch car, and therefore when I got into the new job, I was in 2 minds. But the next one is the EQS because I want to get into the electric myself to drive personally. I drove it for around a couple of weekends, I loved it. But you know, there was this entire thing in life that yes, at some point I will drive an S-Class. So I had to fulfill that, which I took that as my company car. But now the next one is the EQS for me.
I can vouch for the EQS. The drive was really smooth. Okay, Santosh, thank you so much for making time and speaking with ET Now. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks a lot for joining us. Thank you. Thanks.